take you through a Great Glossy Count practice scenario. This will hopefully help you envision being out on the field and collecting data at your survey site. If possible, I'd highly suggest downloading the Birdata app on your mobile device and then following along as we go. Before we head out to our survey site, we want to prepare and make sure we'll be safe on the field. We should check the relevant government websites for any weather warnings, planned burns, or park closures to make sure those won't affect us. We should check our pack list and make sure that we've got everything that we need to stay safe and collect data in the field. And finally, we should let a friend or family member know where we're heading to and when we plan to return. This is especially important if you're heading out to a remote site. Details on all of this and everything that we're covering today is available via our How to Participate in the Great Glossy Count web guide, accessible via our Glossy resources. In that guide, there is a full pack list of the things we suggest you bring, and links where you can check for weather warnings, planned burns, or park closures in each state. If you cannot access your survey site or it seems unsafe, please do not proceed. You also shouldn't cross private property unless you have prior permission from the property owner. You can check to see if there is a different suitable survey site available to book near you, using the same process you used to book a survey site initially. If there is not a different suitable survey site available for you to survey during the count weekend, you can always visit the site you originally booked at a later date when it's safe to do so. While the data won't be included in the Great Glossy Count dataset, it will still help us build an important picture of where glossies are or are not and how they use the landscape. So we've checked the government websites, made sure that we've got everything packed that we need, told our friends and family where we're heading to and when we're expected to return, and we've now headed off to and arrived at our survey site. We've had a look around and familiarised ourselves with entry and exit points and the nearest facilities. We've also had a look around to make sure the site looks safe, checking for warning signs, that the condition of tracks and trails are still good, especially if the area has been impacted by recent weather conditions. If we've driven to our site, we want to make sure that our vehicle is parked safely out of the way of any access points so that we don't hinder anyone else who might be coming through. We also want to check that it's safely locked up and our vehicle keys are in a secure pocket or place before we leave. We don't want to spend a few hours trekking through our survey site only to realise that our keys have fallen out somewhere along the way when we get back. At this point, we also just want to note down our arrival time so we can look back at it later and see how much time we've spent at our survey site. You also want to remember your start location so you can get back to your vehicle. Noting down your GPS coordinates is one way to do this, and you can use something like Google Maps or the Birdata app itself. So we've noted down our arrival time, let's say around 9 AM, and we'll start our survey by just walking through our site, using tracks and trails where possible, keeping an eye out for she oaks and looking and listening for glossies. Throughout the day, we'll be staying on or close to tracks and trails and trying to cover as much of the survey site as we can. We've already had a look at the map before heading out, so we have a rough idea of the route that we're going to take today. We'll spend at least an hour on site, but we can stay out as long as we can and are happy to survey. After all, this is a great opportunity to just relax and spend some time in nature while collecting important information on glossies. So, walking, as we're going, we're checking underneath she oaks that we come across for signs of chewings. That is, she oak cones that glossies have fed on and dropped to the ground. So far we haven't had much luck, but we've just checked out this stand of she oaks up ahead and, very excitingly, we've found some glossy chewings. We want to record this information in our Birdata app. If you do prefer recording things on paper first, we do have paper data sheets you can download and print off, and they are definitely handy to have with you as a backup. But today we'll be entering our data straight into Birdata. First off, we want to open up the app. Don't stress if you don't have any internet connection, you can still enter your data and then submit it later when you're back in internet range. Once you open up the app, click Record Survey. This will start a new Birdata survey. select the Southeastern Glossy Black Cockatoo program from the list. This will allow us to record glossy-specific data, such as information on she-oaks and chewings. We want to select where we have seen these chewings. The app will automatically detect your current GPS location. If you don't have internet connection, the visual details may not load, but your GPS location should still be correct. If you don't think the Birdata coordinates are correct, you can make a record of this in the notes section and amend the location later. If you did want to simulate no internet connection conditions in this practice run, you can turn on airplane mode on your phone before opening the Birdata app. Our current location in the app looks good though, so we'll tap the point to confirm it and then proceed to the next section by clicking the Record Survey Here button. This brings us to the Details tab. Birdata automatically pre-fills certain information. The start date and observation time will be your current time. We can change these if needed by clicking each field. We've already selected the Southeastern Glossy Black Cockatoo program, but if we haven't, we can change this if needed. I'm out in the field with someone else today, so I'm going to select that there are 2 observers in total and pop in the name of the people surveying with me, in this case, good old John Smith, into the Additional Observers field. For site/grid arrival time, this is the time we arrived at our site and noted down earlier. So I'm going to change this to 9 AM, which is when we said we arrived at our site earlier. Arrival time is the time we arrived at the site and started our survey, and observation time is the time we actually found the chewings and made that observation. Next, I can enter weather conditions at the time of observation. Let's say the weather was looking pretty fine, so I'll select that, but I can add additional selections if fine on its own doesn't fully describe the current conditions. In terms of experience, I've completed at least a few glossy surveys before. Select the option that's most applicable to you though. You can elaborate further in the comments section later, if you wish. If you've been fortunate enough to see glossies drinking, you can record information about their drinking site here. For most people, this will be a no response, but if you do select one of the other options, it will prompt you to specify in more detail. We ask that you only say yes in this field if you actively see glossies drinking at a site. We have now come to the Have you found any she-oaks option. This question refers to any she-oak with or without chewings. If we select yes, this will expand additional fields for you to complete. So in our scenario, we have indeed found some she-oaks, so we'll select the yes option. Roughly counting the number of she-oaks, it's a moderate sized stand of about 5 to 15 trees, so we'll select that option. The she-oaks here do have cones, so we'll select yes, and then yes for chewings underneath them. There are only 4 trees with chewings underneath them, so we'll select the less than 5 option here. On the rare chance that your she-oaks have chewings, but no cones on the she-oaks themselves, please select yes for this option so you can record that chewing information. Next, we want to add details for the tree species with chewings underneath them. We were able to identify our tree as a black she-oak using our Southeastern Glossy Black Cockatoo Field Guide available in BirdLife's ID Resources section, so we'll select that option. Using the photo guides provided, it looks like we have some brown chewings, but also some that are a bit more orange in colour, so we'll select that option as well. If there's a second species of she-oak, you can record this in the app in the same way. And if you mistakenly add a second species, you can simply delete the record. Once we've added our species, we'll click Done in the top right-hand corner. If you've taken any photos of your site or she-oaks and chewings on your mobile device, you can upload these here. Photos taken on a separate camera, such as a DSLR, can be uploaded to your Birdata record later using the Birdata web portal. If there are any extra details about your site or observation you'd like to add, you can enter these in the comments section here. Once we're done completing this section, click on the Record Sightings button to proceed. In this section, we can record information on any glossies observed. However, we haven't seen any birds, so we can skip this section for now and go straight to Review and Submit. At this last stage, we can check over all the details to make sure everything looks right, and if everything looks good, we'll hit the Submit Survey button. Don't do this for your practice round, but once we hit Submit, that's our observation of chewings recorded. You won't actually be able to submit a survey without an internet connection, but this is nothing to be concerned about. Your survey details are saved as you enter them, so at this point you can just click the back arrow and you can access your survey in the Incomplete Surveys section. Once you have internet connection again, just select the relevant incomplete survey and submit it once you've checked that details are correct. So we've just recorded our data on the chewings we found. We've moved on, walking through our survey site, and listening carefully, we can hear the sound of cones falling to the ground. We quietly head towards the direction of the sound, and amazingly, we've found 3 glossies sitting in a she oak, happily feeding away. We take some photos as a record of the sighting, but we don't do anything that will disturb the birds just to get better photos. So at a distance from which we're not disturbing the birds, we open up Birdata again. The steps are very similar as to when we recorded data on the chewings we found earlier, except this time we want to record details on the birds themselves in the sightings section as well that we skipped last time. To add details on a glossy, we want to tap the Search by Species Name bar, which will allow us to select Glossy Black Cockatoo. Once this has been selected, we can enter specific details on each bird. In this scenario, we've identified 1 adult female, 1 adult male, and what we think is a sub-adult male, but we're not 100% sure. The Birdata app is set up so that you record information on each unique demographic or behaviour seen. So here we'll end up with 3 separate bird records. We saw 1 bird that was a female adult and it was primarily feeding. We can record some extra details in the notes section as well. This is always helpful to our data analysts later when we're vetting records. If I have taken a photo on my device, I can also add that from my photo library here, or I can take a photo on the spot using the camera. We'll add another bird by repeating this process, selecting the species, and then adding details for our second bird. 1 bird that was an adult male, and it was also feeding. Again, it's optional, but we can add some notes or photos if we want to help clarify the record. We'll repeat the process again for our third bird, which was what we think was a male but of unsure age. If we're very unsure, we should mark both categories as unsure, and we can provide further details via notes or photos for our data analysts. And that's how you add details on birds of different demographics or activity. As you can see, we've got our record of 3 different birds. If another bird happened to appear, for example, another bird we think is a male but of unsure age, we can quickly toggle the number of these birds of that demographic on the main screen. Once we're happy with the data we've recorded, we'll click the Review and Submit button, which will give us a chance to review the data that we've entered and make sure that everything is correct. We can then submit our survey, but we're not going to do that this time because it's a practice run. Each Birdata survey is associated with a specific GPS location, so if you come across multiple birds or she oaks with chewings throughout your survey site, you should be submitting a new separate survey to make sure you're recording your observations against the correct GPS location. While it is wonderful to find chewings and glossies at your site, it is actually quite normal to not find anything at all, and you shouldn't feel too disappointed if this is the case. This zero data is still really important information to record and helps us understand where the birds do and don't use the landscape. You should record your zero data in a similar way to recording an observation on chewings. If you have seen she oaks, you can record this, but just select No where it asks if you've seen any glossies, feeding or chewings, and then submit your survey. We encourage you to practice your own scenarios using the Birdata app in your own time. Just remember to not actually submit your practice surveys. If you do accidentally submit a practice survey, you can delete this via the Birdata web portal. Remember, all our Glossy Black Cockatoo and Great Glossy Count resources are available from the main event page at bit.ly/glossycount or via the QR code here, including instructions on how to participate in the Great Glossy Count. Thank you, and I hope this practice scenario has been of help to you. All the best and happy birding.